What if the next wave of changes does not arrive as a giant balance patch, but as a quiet switch that suddenly makes some of the oldest favorites feel playable again? Over the last day, the community has been buzzing about a new Hexenzirkel angle, fresh intel on Durin's kit, and a status flip for Varka. None of this is small. If even half of it holds when versions 6.1 and 6.2 roll through, the way many of us build teams in Mondstadt lineups will change, and it will not be because of one more artifact set or one more small tweak. It will be because a lore group you have been reading about since the early years is finally turning into a real gameplay lever. Let us start with the part that touches the widest group of accounts, the rumored Hexenzirkel effects. The short version is simple to understand. When you field 2 characters who belong to the Hexenzirkel, special bonuses unlock. The names attached in the latest sheets line up with long-standing lore, and with the teaser art people spotted: Venti, Klee, Albedo, Mona, Sucrose, Fischl, Razor, and even Durin. The example most people are quoting is very straightforward. If you run 2 members, Venti and Klee gain extra tools. After Venti uses his burst, his normal attacks can fire a Nemo-infused, piercing arrows. Klee, on the other hand, automatically lets off a charged attack after every 3 normal attacks. It reads like a faction resonance, but tuned to characters rather than elements, and it sits on top of their kits rather than replacing them. Why does this matter? Because it is a new way to push life into older units without rewriting their entire kit or printing a strict best in Slot Buddy. Venti has always been a monster of crowd control with odd moments as a driver. With arrows added to his string after burst, he would not just hold enemies in a tornado, he could become a DPS. Klee's quality of life change is even easier to feel. Since launch, she has asked you to dance around stamina and animation cancels. An automatic charged shot every few taps of her basic string means fewer clunky cancels and more stable pyro damage over time. Even if the multipliers are low, the play feel alone is a buff many Klee fans have begged for. Of course there is a trade-off. Because these switches look party-dependent, you will not feel them unless you actually run 2 members at once. That is the simple cost of a resonance-style rule. The upside is that it avoids breaking the game. The downside is that it nudges team building. My take is that this is a fair middle road for a live game. It keeps power in check, it rewards creative pairings in Spiral or Theater, and it lets older characters shine again without turning them into brand new releases. If the numbers behind the scenes end up being strong, you will see a lot more Venti drivers and Klee pilots on your feed. If they land softly, the pure quality of life will still feel nice, and Mondstadt teams will at least have a fresh hook to build around. Now, how does Durin fit into this? The leaks paint him as a 5-star pyro sword user built with a 2-form burst kit. His elemental skill generates extra energy, which is already a welcome line for any on-field unit. His burst asks for 70 energy and can be tuned toward area control or single target. One form applies pyro to multiple enemies in a cluster around a chosen monster. The other is a single target strike that acts like a boss killer. This split lets you solve both kinds of content without swapping characters. Early notes on constellations point to a first constellation that lifts skill multipliers, a second that gives a plus 50% damage bonus line, and a 6th that shaves roughly 30% of the enemy's defense. Later corrections say that the 6th is not a party-wide shred, it is tied to Durin himself, which is more balanced, but still very strong. His resistance-reducing form no longer cuts hydro or cryo-resistance, a change that likely reins him in so he does not become a universal shred bot for freeze and vape teams on top of everything else. His signature weapon is described as giving a small attack buff to the party. Small or not, a universal damage stat on a signature sword is the kind of glue that makes a unit plug into many squads without friction. Put that together with the Hexenzirkel hooks and you can see the shape. If you roll Durin and place him next to another member of the circle, you are likely to unlock both a resonance-style perk and a compact kit that flexes between mobbing and bossing. That is a healthy way to push Mondstadt lines back into relevance. We also need to talk about Varka, because one line from a reliable leaker made a lot of people sit up straight. The latest note calls Varka a 5-star limited character. That runs directly against the old rumor that he would enter the standard banner. If you have been planning around a standard drop, this matters. A limited status means he will live in event banners like other headliners, and you will not have a background chance to lose a 50-50 to him in the standard pool. It also signals intent. A limited tag usually comes with a kit power budget that is meant to headline a patch rather than quietly join the background. That does not guarantee he will break the meta, but it does set expectations higher than a standard pool arrival would. For anyone hoarding primo gems, the takeaway is simple. If Varka is on your dream list, he is much more likely to ask for a real pull plan rather than a long wait and a wish. Back to the big question everyone keeps asking in my comments. What does this Hexenzirkel change mean for the game as a whole? First, it shows that the team is comfortable using faction identity as a mechanical lever. Up to now, the main shared hooks have been elements, weapons, or regions. A witch circle bonus is different. It is opt-in, it is thematic, and it can be expanded slowly. If it lands well, you can imagine similar light touch boosts for other connected groups. That opens lanes for updating older rosters without heavy reworks. Second, it hints at a future where some pairs or trios become the comfortable versions of classic teams. You will still be able to run the raw elemental core of a national team, but if two members happen to share a faction, the little extras may push them ahead in feel and in numbers. Third, it gives builders something fun to chase that is not only about perfect artifact rolls. Pairing two witches to unlock arrows or charged shot automation is not locked behind a ridiculous flat damage line. It is locked behind team selection. That is a kinder form of power creep for a lot of players. There will be downsides. If you love mixing far-flung rosters, a 2-member requirement can feel like a tax. If the numbers behind the new passives land too low, people will call it flavor without substance. If they land too high, people will say the game is forcing same faction pairs. Balance is hard, and it will take a patch or two for the dust to settle. But even with those caveats, this direction is healthy. It rewards knowledge of the world, not just raw stats, and it nudges variety without deleting established teams. As always, everything here comes from pre-release information and credible community translators, so treat numbers as moving pieces until the build is live. The moment official multipliers land, I will update. In the meantime, tell me which 2 witches you would pair first and why. I am curious what playstyle you guys want to try out. Thanks for hanging out and keeping the discussions fun. If you want the next wave of details the second they appear, subscribe so the updates and Primo Gem code posts land right in your feed. We just keep climbing together, and I am grateful for every single person who shows up, comments, and shares their teams. Thanks for watching, and see you in Nod Cry.